The giant space station floated quietly around the orange gas planet called Helios Prime. Inside the station's main meeting room, alien beings from across the galaxy waited. Some looked like tall crystals that glowed with soft light. Others had 6 arms and faces like insects. A few appeared almost like humans but with blue skin and extra eyes. They were all here for the same reason. The humans had asked to join their group called the Galactic Federation. Today, the aliens would decide if Earth was good enough to be part of their club. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho walked into the room with his team. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a calm voice. Behind him came Dr. Park So-min, a smart woman, who studied different cultures and languages. Captain Lee Do-hyun followed them, a strong man who had once been a soldier and now protected the diplomatic team. The 3 humans looked around the massive room. The ceiling stretched high above them, and strange lights made everything glow with different colors. The alien delegates sat in special chairs made for their different body types. Some floated in the air, while others needed support for their heavy forms. Chairman Vextar stood up from his seat. He was from the Zephyrian Empire and looked like a tall human with blue skin and 4 arms. His voice was deep and carried across the room easily. "Welcome, beings from the planet Earth," he said. The way he spoke made it sound like he was talking to children. "We have gathered here to hear why your species believes it deserves to join our great federation." Ambassador Kim stepped forward and bowed politely. "Thank you for this opportunity, Chairman Vextar. We come here with respect for all the great civilizations represented in this room." Some of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. The crystal beings pulsed with brighter light, which seemed to be their way of showing amusement. The insect-like creatures clicked their mandibles together in a rhythm that sounded mocking. Kim continued speaking, his voice steady and confident. "Earth has made great progress in the past century. We have ended wars between our nations and work together as one planet now. Our scientists have developed new technologies that could help all members of the Federation." Dr. Park opened a small device that projected images into the air above them. The pictures showed Earth cities, its space stations, and the ships that had brought them here. "We offer friendship, trade, and the sharing of knowledge," she said. The alien delegates looked at the images with expressions that clearly showed they were not impressed. A creature that looked like a giant spider, with too many eyes, spoke up. "Your ships took many months to reach us. Our fastest vessels could make the same journey in days." Another alien, this one covered in scales and having a long neck, added, "Your largest city holds fewer people than our smallest colony worlds." Kim nodded respectfully. "We understand we have much to learn. That is why we seek membership in your federation. We hope to grow and contribute alongside more advanced civilizations." Chairman Vextar made a gesture with 2 of his hands that seemed dismissive. "Yes, well, that is admirable. Your desire to better yourselves shows promise." The way he said it made it clear he thought humans were like pets trying to learn tricks. More sounds of amusement came from around the room. Captain Lee stood quietly, behind his colleagues, but his eyes were constantly moving. He watched each alien delegate, noting their reactions and behaviors. His military training had taught him to always be aware of his surroundings, and something about this meeting felt wrong to him. "We have prepared a proposal," Kim said, gesturing to Dr. Park. She activated another device that showed charts and graphs. "Earth can offer rare minerals from our asteroid belt, new agricultural techniques that could help feed growing populations, and our research into clean energy sources." The information displayed was impressive by human standards. Earth scientists had worked for years to prepare this presentation. The data showed sustainable technologies, efficient manufacturing processes, and innovations in medicine. But the aliens barely glanced at it. A floating creature that looked like a jellyfish made of light spoke in a voice that sounded like music. "How charming. They think their primitive chemistry experiments might interest us." The insect-like delegate clicked louder. "Perhaps they could provide entertainment for our children. Humans seem so energetic in their simplicity." Dr. Park felt her cheeks get warm with embarrassment, but she kept her professional smile. She had studied many cultures in her career, but she had never encountered such open rudeness disguised as politeness. Kim tried a different approach. We also offer our cultural diversity. Earth has hundreds of different languages, art forms, and ways of thinking. This variety might bring new perspectives to Federation problems. Problems? Chairman Vextar raised what might have been an eyebrow. What problems could primitive minds help us solve? We have been managing galactic affairs for thousands of your years. The crystal beings pulsed brighter, and their spokesperson spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Perhaps they could help us understand how less developed species think. It might be useful for our sociological studies. Captain Lee's hand moved slightly toward his weapon, then stopped. This was supposed to be a diplomatic meeting, but the aliens were treating his people like zoo animals. He caught Ambassador Kim's eye and saw the same controlled anger there. We understand, Kim said carefully, that our technology and knowledge may seem basic compared to your achievements, but every species has something unique to offer. Chairman Vextar stood up, his forearms spread wide. Of course. We are not entirely without generosity. The Federation has always been willing to help younger species find their place in the galaxy. The way he said, younger species, made it sound like he was talking about toddlers. We will consider your request carefully, Vextar continued. There may be a place for humanity in our great community. Not as full members, of course. That would be premature, but perhaps as protected associates. The other aliens made more sounds of amusement. It was clear they had already decided, and this whole meeting was just for their entertainment. Dr. Park translated the alien body language she had been studying. Protected associates meant servants. They wanted humanity to become workers for the other species with no real voice in Federation decisions. Ambassador Kim bowed again. We are grateful for your consideration. Might we have some time to discuss your generous offer among ourselves? Certainly, Chairman Vexatar said with false kindness. Take all the time you need. We understand such important decisions require careful thought. As the human delegation left the meeting room, they could hear the aliens talking and laughing behind them. The sound followed them down the corridor like mockery given voice. The next 3 days were the worst of Ambassador Kim Taeho's diplomatic career. Each morning, he and his team returned to the council chamber hoping for respectful discussion. Instead, they faced new forms of mockery disguised as official business. Onboing. The second day, Chairman Vextar presented what he called simple tests to prove humanity's readiness for Federation membership. The first test was a mathematics problem that their computers had solved instantly. The aliens watched with barely hidden smiles as Dr. Park So-min worked through calculations by hand, taking hours to reach an answer the aliens already knew. How interesting, commented the jellyfish-like creature. They still use individual brain power for computation. How primitive. The crystal beings pulsed with what was clearly laughter. Their spokesperson chimed, perhaps we should give them simpler problems. Maybe basic arithmetic would be more appropriate. Captain Lee Do-hyun clenched his fists but stayed silent. His military training had taught him when to fight and when to wait. This was definitely a time to wait, even though every insult made his anger grow stronger. The second test was even worse. The aliens wanted to see human technology, so Dr. Park demonstrated their portable computer system. To human eyes, it was an impressive piece of engineering that could process massive amounts of data and connect to networks across space. The alien delegates examined it like scientists studying an ancient artifact. The spider-like creature picked it up with one of its many legs and turned it around slowly. Fascinating, it said in a voice that dripped with false interest. They still use solid-state electronics. I haven't seen technology this basic since my great-grandmother's museum. The scaled alien with the long neck added, my hatchlings play with more advanced toys than this. Dr. Park felt her face burn with embarrassment, but she kept her voice steady. This device can calculate trajectory paths for interstellar travel and translate between 50 Earth languages simultaneously. How wonderful, said Chairman Vextar in the same tone someone might use to praise a child's finger painting. Your Species shows such determination in working with limited resources. That evening, the human team met in their assigned quarters on the space station. The rooms were comfortable but clearly designed for guests who were not considered important. Everything was smaller and simpler than what the other delegates received. "They're not even trying to hide their contempt," Dr. Park said, sitting heavily, in a chair that was too short for her height. "This isn't diplomacy. This is a game to them." Ambassador Kim nodded slowly. He had been in difficult negotiations before, but nothing like this. "I've been analyzing their behavior patterns," he said. "Dr. Park, what do your cultural studies tell you?" Dr. Park opened her computer and pulled up notes she had been taking during the meetings. "It's ritualized dominance behavior," she said. "They've already decided we're inferior. These tests aren't meant to evaluate us. They're meant to prove their superiority to themselves and each other." Captain Lee was standing by the window looking out at the stars. "They enjoy watching us struggle," he said quietly. "It makes them feel powerful." "The question is," Kim said, "what do we do about it?" Dr. Park continued reading her notes. "I've been watching their interactions with each other when they think we're not paying attention. The Federation isn't as united as they pretend. There are tensions between different species, competition for resources, old grudges." "That's useful information," Kim said. "But right now, we need to focus on our mission." Captain Lee turned from the window. "Sir, with respect, what exactly is our mission now? They've made it clear they'll never accept us as equals." Kim was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Our mission was to explore peaceful integration with the galactic community. That mission hasn't changed, even if the circumstances have." On the third day, Chairman Vexitar called for what he announced would be the final session. The council chamber was more crowded than before. Word had spread throughout the station about the amusing human delegation, and aliens from various ships had come to watch the conclusion of what they saw as entertainment. "We have carefully considered your request," Vexitar began, his forearms spread wide in a gesture that was probably meant to look generous. "The Federation Council has reached a decision." The human delegation sat quietly in their assigned seats, which were positioned lower than all the others, making them look up at the alien speakers like children. "Humanity will be welcomed into the galactic community," Vexitar announced. The way he said it made it clear there was a catch coming. "You will be granted the status of protected species under the guidance and care of the Federation Council." Dr. Park had researched this term. Protected species meant exactly what it sounded like: pets. They would have no voting rights in Federation decisions. Earth would become a source of labor and resources for other species. Humans would be assigned to whatever jobs the aliens decided they were suitable for. "This is a great honor," Vexitar continued. "Protected species receive the benefits of Federation technology and protection. In return, you will contribute to the greater galactic community through service and tribute." The alien delegates were no longer trying to hide their amusement. Some were openly laughing. A few were recording the humans' reactions for later entertainment. Ambassador Kim stood up slowly. His face was calm, but Dr. Park could see the anger in his eyes. "Chairman Vexitar, we are grateful for your generous offer. However, we need time to consult with our government before accepting such an important arrangement." "Of course," Vexitar said with false understanding. "We know this is overwhelming for a young species. Take a few days to discuss it among yourselves. We're sure you'll see the wisdom in accepting our protection." The implication was clear. Accept the offer or be thrown out of the station with nothing. That night, Captain Lee sent a coded message back to Earth using their ship's quantum communication system. The message was brief but carried enormous weight. Diplomatic solution. Impossible. Recommend alternative approach. Situation code. Vermilion. Several alien intelligence services detected fragments of the transmission. They assumed it was either a desperate plea for help or instructions on how to surrender with dignity. The idea that it might be something else never occurred to them. Unknown to the aliens, situation code. Vermilion had a very specific meaning. In human military terminology, It meant that peaceful options had been exhausted and that alternative measures were authorized. Dr. Park spent the evening writing detailed reports about everything she had observed. Not just the diplomatic meetings, but the station's layout, the aliens' technology, their social structures, and their obvious weaknesses. Her anthropological training had taught her to notice things that others missed. Captain Lee reviewed the station's security systems and defensive capabilities. His military background made him automatically assess potential threats and vulnerabilities. What he found was interesting. The aliens had powerful technology, but they had grown comfortable and overconfident. Ambassador Kim composed his own report for Earth's leaders. It was longer than the others, and included detailed recommendations about humanity's future relationship with the galactic community. The conclusion was clear. The Federation was not worthy of human respect or membership. As the three humans worked late into the night, none of them knew that their situation was about to change dramatically. Far away, in the depths of space, something was moving toward them at incredible speed. The aliens continued their celebrations, confident that they had successfully put another primitive species in its proper place. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. 2 weeks had passed since the aliens offered humanity their insulting terms. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho and his team remained on the station, apparently stalling for time while they waited for instructions from Earth. Each day brought new mockery from the alien delegates who grew more impatient with the humans' delays. The station's corridors buzzed with gossip about the entertaining human delegation. Alien traders, diplomats, and tourists had all heard about the primitive species that thought it could join the Federation as equals. Some had even started betting pools on how long it would take the humans to accept their place as protected servants. Dr. Park So-min used this time wisely. She walked through the station's public areas, observing and learning. The aliens ignored her, thinking she was just a harmless primitive trying to understand her betters. They had no idea she was conducting the most thorough intelligence analysis in human history. Captain Lee Do-hyun also stayed busy. He memorized the station's layout, identified security weak points, and studied the alien guards' patrol patterns. To anyone watching, he looked like a tourist exploring the station. In reality, he was doing what soldiers do, preparing for every possible scenario. Ambassador Kim spent his time in diplomatic meetings, asking endless questions about Federation law, membership requirements, and governance structures. The aliens thought he was desperately trying to find loopholes in their generous offer. They answered his questions with growing impatience and barely concealed contempt. On the morning of the 15th day, Chairman Vexitar called for a final session. He had grown tired of the human delays and wanted to end this amusing but increasingly tedious situation. "Today we will conclude these negotiations," he announced to the packed council chamber. Even more aliens had gathered to watch what they expected would be humanity's final humiliation. "The humans will accept our generous offer of protected status, or they will leave Federation space immediately." The chamber filled with excited chatter as aliens discussed the entertainment they were about to witness. Some had brought recording devices to capture the moment when the proud humans finally begged for mercy. Ambassador Kim stood at the speaker's podium, looking calm despite the hostile crowd around him. Dr. Park and Captain Lee sat nearby, their faces showing no emotion. They had learned to hide their feelings during these long weeks of insults. "Chairman Vexitar," Kim began, "we have carefully considered your offer and we have received guidance from our government." The aliens leaned forward in anticipation. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The complete surrender of human pride. Suddenly, alarms began screaming throughout the station. The lights flickered and dimmed, then returned to full brightness. Emergency signals flashed on walls and ceilings, bathing everything in red light. Station Commander Kel Noth rushed into the council chamber, his blue skin pale with worry. He was an experienced Zephyrian officer who had commanded this station for 20 years. Nothing had ever made him look this frightened. "Chairman, we have a situation," he said, his voice shaking. "Multiple contacts detected at the system's edge. Large energy signatures approaching at high speed." The main viewing screen activated automatically, showing the station's long-range sensors. What appeared on the screen made the entire chamber fall silent, Ships. Hundreds of ships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formations. But these weren't the crude vessels the aliens expected from primitive humanity. These were warships that dwarfed anything in the Federation fleet. At the center of the formation sat a ship so massive, it blocked out the stars behind it. The hull was dark metal that seemed to absorb light, and energy readings showed power levels. That shouldn't be possible. A communication request came through the station's systems. Commander Kelnoth accepted it with trembling hands, and a new voice filled the chamber. "This is Captain Yoon Jae-sung of the Terran Federal Navy vessel Incheon. We are here to collect our diplomatic team." The voice was calm and professional, but it carried an undertone of controlled power that made even the largest aliens step back from the screen. Chairman Vextar found his voice first. This is impossible. Humans don't have ships like this. Our intelligence reports showed primitive technology." Captain Lee stood up from his seat, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted you to see." Dr. Park activated a small device she had been carrying throughout their stay. The aliens had examined it many times and dismissed it as a primitive translation tool. Now it projected detailed schematics of their station, complete with defensive capabilities, structural weak points, and security protocols. "We've been studying you," she said quietly. "Learning your strengths and weaknesses, understanding how you think and what you fear." The display showed information that should have been impossible for the humans to obtain. Secret military installations, classified technology specifications, private communications between alien leaders. All of it had been recorded and analyzed. Ambassador Kim stepped forward, and his voice carried new authority. "Gentlemen, ladies, and beings of various classifications, allow me to introduce Admiral Cho Min-ho of the Terran Federal Navy." The main screen changed to show the interior of the massive warship. A human in a crisp military uniform looked out at them with eyes that had seen real war and emerged victorious. "Greetings," Admiral Cho said, his voice filling the now silent chamber. "I understand there have been some difficulties in your negotiations with our diplomatic team." Chairman Vextar tried to regain control of the situation. "This is highly irregular. Proper diplomatic protocol requires advance notice of military vessels entering Federation space." Admiral Cho's expression didn't change. "Federation space? I'm sorry, but this system isn't listed in our charts as belonging to any recognized government. We show it as neutral territory." The casual dismissal of Federation authority hit the aliens like a physical blow. For centuries, they had been the dominant power in this region of space. The idea that someone might not recognize their sovereignty was almost incomprehensible. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately," Vexitar said, desperation creeping into his voice. "I think we've had enough private discussions," Admiral Cho replied. "Our diplomatic team was sent here to explore peaceful integration with your organization. They were not authorized to negotiate terms of surrender or accept vassal status for humanity." The word vassal hung in the air like an accusation. Every alien in the chamber understood what it meant. They had been treating a potential equal as a conquered territory. Dr. Park stood and addressed the chamber directly. "During our stay here, we've learned a great deal about your Federation. Your technological capabilities, your military strength, your economic systems, and your political structures." She gestured to her device, which began displaying more information than should have been possible to gather. Trade routes, military deployment patterns, resource allocation data, diplomatic communications between member worlds, a complete intelligence profile of the entire Federation. "We've also learned about your character," she continued. "Your tendency to underestimate others, your assumption of superiority, and your habit of treating diplomacy as entertainment." Captain Lee added his own revelation. "Every device we brought to this station contained advanced sensor arrays. While you were laughing at our primitive technology, it was recording everything: your security codes, your defensive systems, your private conversations." The implications began to sink in. The humans hadn't been the desperate petitioners the aliens thought. They had been intelligence operatives conducting the most comprehensive espionage operation in galactic history. "The question now," Admiral Cho said from the screen, is how we proceed from here. Our diplomatic team has completed their mission, and we have the information we need to make informed decisions about future relationships. The chamber erupted in panicked conversation as aliens realized their entire understanding of the situation had been wrong. These weren't primitive beings begging for acceptance. They were representatives of a civilization that had been studying and evaluating the Federation like specimens in a laboratory. Chairman Vextar's forearms shook as he pointed at the human delegation. This is treachery, espionage. We welcomed you in good faith. Ambassador Kim's expression remained calm. You welcomed us as inferiors to be mocked and humiliated. We accepted that treatment to learn who you really are. The results have been educational. The aliens scrambled to understand what they were facing. Station Commander Kelnoth barked orders at his sensor operators, demanding more detailed readings on the human fleet. What they discovered made the situation even more terrifying. Sir, reported the chief sensor operator, his voice trembling, the energy signatures don't match anything in our databases. The hull materials appear to be constructed from some form of exotic matter we can't identify. The technical officer added his own disturbing findings. Their weapon systems are powered by what looks like contained stellar cores. Each ship carries enough firepower to destroy a moon. Admiral Cho Min-ho's image dominated the main screen, but he waited patiently while the aliens processed this information. He had the calm confidence of someone who held all the advantages and knew it. Chairman Vextar attempted to regain some authority. Admiral, surely we can discuss this situation reasonably. There may have been misunderstandings, but we are civilized beings who can work through our differences. Misunderstandings? Admiral Cho's eyebrows rose slightly. Commander Baek Soo-jin, would you please share our diplomatic team's reports with these civilized beings? A new voice came through the communication system. Commander Baek Soo-jin spoke, in the crisp, professional tone of a military briefing officer. Day 1 of diplomatic contact. Human delegation offered standard trade agreements, cultural exchange, and scientific cooperation. Alien response included mockery, dismissive laughter, and suggestions that humans might provide entertainment value. The aliens shifted uncomfortably as their own behavior was read back to them in cold, factual language. Day 2. Aliens presented deliberately impossible mathematical problems as tests of human capability. Hidden recordings capture several delegates making jokes about human intelligence and suggesting they might be useful as pets for their children. Several alien faces changed color, the equivalent of blushing in embarrassment. Commander Baek continued. Day 3. Final offer presented to human delegation, accept status as protected species, with no voting rights, no territorial claims, and mandatory service to alien masters. This offer was presented as generosity, while delegates recorded human reactions for entertainment purposes. The chamber was dead silent now. Hearing their own cruelty described in military terms made it sound even worse than it had been. Dr. Park, So-min stepped forward and activated her device again. New information filled the air above them. Detailed psychological profiles of every alien delegate present. Chairman Vextar, she began, reading from her data. Zephyrian Imperial Noble, 3rd generation, inherited position through family connections rather than merit. Has never personally negotiated with an equal power. Psychological profile indicates deep insecurity, masked by artificial superiority. Vextar's forearms began shaking with rage, but Dr. Park continued calmly. Council member Trixnall of the Nexari Collective, insectoid species representative. Military background includes only colonial suppression campaigns against pre-spaceflight civilizations. No experience with peer-level conflict. Demonstrates classic predator mentality that fails when confronted with superior force. She moved through the chamber, identifying each delegate by name and revealing detailed knowledge of their personal histories, psychological weaknesses, and political vulnerabilities. The information was so accurate and comprehensive that several aliens backed away from her, as if she were reading their minds. Captain Lee Do-hyun added his own revelations. He produced a small scanner that projected three-dimensional maps of the entire station. During our stay here, we've mapped every corridor, every security checkpoint, every defensive system, he announced. We know the location of your ammunition stores, your power generators, your communication arrays, and your escape pods. The security implications were staggering. If the humans had wanted to sabotage or capture the station, they could have done it at any time during the past 2 weeks. We also recorded every private conversation within range of our sensors, Captain Lee continued, including several discussions between alien delegates about how to divide human-controlled territory once we accepted your generous offer of slavery. Admiral, Cho's voice cut through the shocked silence. Let me provide some context that might help you understand your current situation. The main screen changed to show star maps that covered vast regions of space. The aliens recognized the local galactic arm, but the scale was much larger than any map they had seen before. Your Federation controls 47 star systems, Admiral, Cho stated matter-of-factly. Impressive for a regional power. Humanity currently maintains active colonies in over 300 systems, with defensive installations in 800 more. The numbers hit the alien delegates like physical blows. The largest Federation member controlled perhaps 15 star systems. Humanity claimed to control 20 times that number. Commander Bike provided additional context. Your most advanced warships mount fusion-based planet cracker weapons capable of destroying cities. Our standard frigates carry contained antimatter, charges sufficient to destabilize stellar cores. She paused to let that sink in before continuing. The ship you see before you, the TFN Incheon, is classified as a heavy cruiser in our fleet. It's considered suitable for patrol duties and minor conflicts. The implications were clear. If this massive warship was just a patrol vessel, what did humanity's real military strength look like? Furthermore, Admiral Cho added, Earth has been aware of your Federation for over 2 centuries. We've been observing your expansion, studying your technology, and preparing for eventual contact. Dr. Park stepped forward to explain. The first contact that led to this diplomatic mission was entirely orchestrated by humanity. We wanted to understand your cultures, your values, and your intentions before revealing our true capabilities. Chairman Dean Dr. Vextar found his voice, though it cracked with strain. 2 centuries, but our first contact protocols, our exploration ships, never detected us because we didn't want to be detected. Admiral Cho replied simply, Your sensor technology is quite sophisticated, but we've had 200 years to study it and develop countermeasures. The crystal being that had been so amused by human limitations now pulsed with dim, frightened light. If you've been watching us for so long, why make contact now? Ambassador Kim Tae-ho answered that question. Because we hoped you might be worthy partners. We wanted to believe that advanced civilizations would be guided by wisdom, compassion, and mutual respect. His voice carried deep disappointment. Instead, we found arrogance, cruelty, and the assumption that might makes right. You treated us as inferiors to be exploited rather than equals to be respected. Admiral Cho nodded gravely. Based on our diplomatic team's reports, we've concluded that your Federation is not suitable for partnership with humanity. However, we're not without compassion. The main screen changed again to show a formal document with impressive seals and signatures. We're prepared to offer individual treaties to any species that demonstrates genuine respect and diplomatic integrity. These would be bilateral agreements between humanity and individual worlds, not membership in your Federation. Several alien delegates immediately began signaling frantically, trying to get Admiral Cho's attention. The spider-like creature that had mocked human technology was practically dancing in its eagerness to speak. Wait, it called out. Perhaps we were hasty in our initial assessments. Surely we can renegotiate the terms of Federation membership for humanity. Dr. Park laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both musical and terrifying. You're offering us membership in your club, after we've demonstrated that we could destroy it whenever we choose. How so generous, Captain Lee added. Besides, we've seen how you treat your existing members. The smaller species live in constant fear of the larger ones. Your Federation isn't a partnership, it's a protection racket with the strongest species, controlling the weak. Admiral Cho's voice cut through the growing desperation in the chamber. This conversation is concluded. Our diplomatic team will return to their ship, and will be departing this system shortly. The screen switched to show the departure bay of the massive warship, where a small shuttle waited. It was clear the humans were leaving whether the aliens cooperated or not. However, Admiral Cho added, individual species representatives who wish to discuss bilateral treaties may request meetings through proper diplomatic channels. We'll consider such requests based on demonstrated good faith and mutual respect. The feeding frenzy began immediately. Alien delegates rushed to contact their governments, all carrying variations of the same message. Forget the Federation, we need to talk to the humans immediately, and this time we're going to listen very carefully. The chaos in the council chamber was unlike anything in Federation history. Alien delegates shouted over each other, desperately trying to be the first to establish contact with the human fleet. Some were already composing urgent messages to their home governments. Others argued among themselves about who was responsible for the diplomatic disaster. Admiral Cho Min-ho watched the panic with the patient expression of someone who had expected exactly this reaction. He had seen similar behavior before when weaker civilizations suddenly realized they were facing a superior power. Before we depart, he said, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade, I want to share some additional information that might help you understand your new situation. The chamber fell silent again. Every alien present hung on his words, desperate for any information that might help them navigate this terrifying new reality. Humanity's expansion into space began 3 centuries ago, Admiral Cho explained. We established our first colony worlds while your Federation was still discovering faster-than-light travel. We had cities on a dozen planets before your species learned to leave their home systems. The historical timeline was devastating. Everything the aliens believed about galactic development was wrong. They weren't the advanced civilization encountering primitives. They were the newcomers meeting an established power. Commander Baek Soo-jin added more context. During those early centuries, we encountered 17 different alien species. Some welcomed us with open arms. Others tried to conquer us. A few attempted to enslave human colonies. Her voice grew colder. Those aggressive species no longer pose a threat to anyone. The implications were clear and terrifying. Humanity had been fighting and winning interstellar wars while the Federation was still figuring out basic diplomacy. Dr. Park So-min stepped forward with her final revelation. We've been monitoring your Federation's development for 200 years, waiting for you to mature enough for meaningful contact. We hoped you would eventually demonstrate wisdom and compassion worthy of galactic leadership. She gestured to the alien delegates around her. Instead, we found a collection of bullies who mistake cruelty for strength and arrogance for achievement. Chairman Vextar made one last, desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Admiral, surely reasonable. Beings can find common ground. The Federation has maintained peace for centuries. Peace? Ambassador Kim Tae-ho stepped forward, his voice carrying quiet anger. We've been monitoring your peaceful Federation. The Corvani rebellion was crushed with orbital bombardment that killed millions of civilians. The Helix mining wars displaced entire populations. The pacification of the Rim territories destroyed 3 different cultures. Each accusation hit the alien delegates like a hammer blow. These were classified military actions that the Federation had kept secret from its own members. Your peace is maintained through fear and overwhelming force applied to weaker species, Kim continued. That's not peace. It's oppression. Admiral Cho nodded gravely. Which brings us to our final decision. After careful consideration, humanity has concluded that your Federation represents everything we oppose in galactic governance. The main screen changed to show official documents bearing the seal of the Terran Federal Republic. Effective immediately, humanity recognizes no authority from the so-called Galactic Federation over any human territory, vessel, or citizen. We will treat Federation ships in human space as we would any other foreign vessels, with courtesy, if they come in peace, and with appropriate force if they come with hostile intent. The legal implications were staggering. Humanity was declaring independence from a galactic authority they had never actually joined. However, Admiral Cho continued, we are not unreasonable. Individual species who demonstrate genuine respect and peaceful intentions are welcome to establish diplomatic relations with the Terran Federal Republic. Several alien delegates were already frantically sending messages to their governments. The smarter ones realized that everything had changed in the past hour, and the old alliances and power structures meant nothing now. The crystal being that had mocked human technology now pulsed with desperate light. Admiral, the Viridian Collective, has always valued peaceful cooperation. Perhaps we could discuss mutual interests. Send a formal diplomatic request through proper channels, Admiral Cho replied. Include evidence of your civilization's commitment to peaceful coexistence and respect for other species' rights. The insect-like creature that had suggested humans might entertain alien children tried a different approach. The Nexari have reconsidered our initial assessment. We believe we may have been hasty in our evaluation of human capabilities. Doctor. Park So-min turned to look at the creature directly. Your psychological profile indicates a predatory mindset that views all interactions as dominance contests. What evidence can you provide that your species has evolved beyond this limitation? The question hung in the air like a challenge. The Nexari delegate had no answer. Captain Lee Do-hyun announced the practical details of their departure. The human diplomatic team will return to our ship in 1 hour. During that time, the station's communication systems will remain open for any government that wishes to establish proper diplomatic contact. He paused to let that sink in before adding, after our departure, this system will be monitored by long-range sensors. Any attempt to follow or intercept human vessels will be considered an act of war. The threat was delivered in the same calm, professional tone used for routine announcements, but every alien present understood its seriousness. Chairman Vextar made one final attempt to maintain some dignity. The Federation Council will need to discuss these developments. Perhaps in time, we can find a path forward that benefits all parties. Ambassador Kim bowed politely, the same respectful gesture he had used during their first meeting weeks ago. Chairman Vextar, the path forward is simple. Treat other species with the same respect you demand for yourselves. Value cooperation over domination. Choose wisdom over arrogance. Will humanity be willing to reconsider Federation membership if we make changes? Asked the scaled alien with the long neck. That would depend entirely on the changes and your commitment to maintaining them, Kim replied. Words are easy. Actions require courage. As the human delegation prepared to leave, the reality of their situation began to sink in for the alien delegates. They had encountered what they thought was a primitive species seeking acceptance. Instead, they had met representatives of the most powerful civilization in known space, and they had insulted, mocked, and humiliated them for weeks. The massive human warship began moving away from the station, its escort vessels maintaining perfect formation around it. The display of military precision was as impressive as the raw firepower they carried. In the council chamber, alien delegates continued their frantic communications with home governments. The smart ones were already drafting formal apologies and requests for diplomatic meetings. The proud ones were still trying to figure out how to maintain their dignity while completely reversing their positions. Station Commander Kel Noth received a priority message from Admiral Cho as the human fleet reached the edge of the system. The message was brief but carried enormous implications. Commander, your station's databases now contain detailed information about establishing diplomatic relations with the Terran Federal Republic. Any species genuinely interested in peaceful cooperation will find the process straightforward and fair. Those who prefer the old ways of doing business are welcome to continue without human involvement. As the human ships disappeared into hyperspace, they left behind a galaxy forever changed. The Federation that had controlled local space for centuries suddenly found itself just another regional power, and not the strongest one. Individual alien species began reaching out to humanity within days. Some offered sincere apologies and requests for friendship. Others tried to maintain their superiority while secretly seeking human protection from their enemies. But the real change was deeper than politics or military power. For the first time in centuries, smaller and weaker species began to hope that the galaxy might become a place where strength served wisdom rather than replacing it. The humans had kept their promise. They had explored peaceful integration with the galactic community. They had simply concluded that the community as it existed wasn't worth joining, but they had left the door open for something better to take its place. In the end, the aliens had expected diplomacy from humanity. They had laughed at what they saw as weakness and primitive thinking. But when a Terran warship arrived, they learned that true strength doesn't need to prove itself through cruelty. It proves itself through the choice to be merciful when mercy is neither expected nor deserved. The galaxy would never be the same.